Throughout the 1980s up until 1991, Nintendo released a series of handheld portable games called Game & Watch. The object of these games is relatively simple. One basically has to continue to perform a task until the game has failed a certain number of times, typically 3 times for most games. Given the technology at the time, most games are played on a simple monochrome LCD display, which means that anytime there is any movement, whether it be a character in the game or an object, what basically happens is a pixel, if that's what you'd like to call it, lights up to show where the position of that object or person is on the screen. Now, because of that, that means that all people or all objects or anything that moves on the screen, they all have a preset path. So, like, say, if I take this Sharpie here and I press down, it makes all the available pixels light up where this character can move. So, when Mr. Game & Watch shows up on stages in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, you can see that he moves along a line of unlit LCD pixels, if that's what you want to call it again. That's basically a reference to the fact that in his original games, he could only move along a preset path.
3, 2, 1, go! 3, 2, 1, go!
In the original Game & Watch games, characters did not have a lot of fluidity to their movement. Obviously, this is due to the limited technology of the LCD screens of that time, but at any rate, though, Mr. Game & Watch's fighting style in Super Smash Bros. Brawl reflects this. In the original Game & Watch games, the animation is limited to whatever the shape of the LCD pixel is that they move to as they move across the screen. In Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Mr. Game & Watch's fighting style is very choppy. It's very frame by frame. That's technically not correct, and all that has to do with the fact that the animation was very limited in the original Game & Watch games. Well, I would love to have all of the original Game & Watch games where Mr. Game & Watch gets his moves from. Mr. Game & Watch's moves come from quite a few different Game & Watch games. Given the rarity and the age of the Game & Watch games, they are rather expensive to acquire. So for the purposes of this video, I will use the classic version of the appropriate Game & Watch games in the Game & Watch Gallery games that were released on Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. Now, again, as I said, I would rather use the original games, but the classic version of the Game & Watch games in the Game & Watch Galleries, they aren't really that different from the original Game & Watch games. There are a few differences with the screen size and the shape of some of the objects on the screen, but otherwise, the classic version in the Game & Watch Galleries will be sufficient for showing the origin of Mr. Game & Watch's moves. So keep that in mind, and please enjoy the video. In addition to being handheld games, Game & Watches were also clocks, hence the watch part of the title. And because they are also clocks, they have an alarm function built into them. Whenever the alarm goes off, a character usually appears somewhere on the screen playing some type of instrument. The instrument is typically a bell, but the character and the instrument vary from game to game. So on this one, let's try out the alarm function. Now, I already had the alarm set earlier for 7:55. Stop it at 8:07. And let's see what happens when this goes off at 8:07. That was perfect. The Game & Watch starts beeping, and as I said before, a character shows up holding a musical instrument. In this case, it's a monkey holding a bell. I've set my small collection of Game & Watch games to all go off at the same time. This way you can at least see what the character and the instrument look like among my small collection of games. In addition, in the introduction to the credits in Game & Watch Gallery 4, some characters and instruments appear that have been used for alarm indicators in other Game & Watch games. Sorry about that. My camera can be a little retarded sometimes. Actually, Chef, interestingly enough, Chef does not have a character or an instrument. Instead, the kettle on the stove starts emitting steam. Okay, in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, when Mr. Game & Watch grabs an opponent and attacks them, he attacks them using a bell. He also uses a bell for his ledge recovery and in 2 of his taunts. And as I've just shown you, the bell comes from the alarm function in most of the Game & Watch games.